Greetings, dear viewer. Today I'm going to be discussing 10 games that I'm excited that are coming out in the near future. While I typically like to rank things, this is going to be a bit different. These games are going to be in order of their release date. They're not as opposed to how excited I am for them or how much I want them to come out or how excited I've been for, say, the entire franchise. I'm sure that most of these won't surprise anyone, but there might be a few that you haven't heard of, and that's why I'm making this list, because of those games that you may not have heard of. I would like to help you learn about a few new games, and maybe have some fun while we're doing it. Let's go ahead and twist our way through this list. Final Fantasy 16 is, as I'm playing the demo right now, I'll be the first to admit that I haven't really gotten into the Final Fantasy genre until the last few years. Simple fact is I didn't grow up with it. So this series hasn't meant that much to me. I dipped my toes in by playing Final Fantasy 15, and it was okay. Not my favorite, but and I thought the driving sections were tedious. Who created that? Did they not playtest it? Because honestly, anybody could have told you that was going to eventually get boring. So Final Fantasy 16, from what I know, is the first game in the franchise that's going to receive an M rating. And within the opening of the demo, they've already earned it with the F-bombs. Not that there's been a whole bunch of profanity, but one guy's running while there's a bunch of collapsing going on, and he just says F, 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 F over and over again. So I find this curious, but also interesting. I've seen footage, and several of my favorite YouTubers have talked about it, and I'm completely interested. The gameplay that I have, the biggest problem with the demo is that for the first 35 minutes I have maybe 2 minutes of gameplay footage. The rest has been cutscenes and dialogue. That's sad, but it's the truth. The combat, so far, seems solid and engaging. Some of the environments definitely look awesome, and this is definitely a game I could see losing 50 or so hours in, if not more. As I said before, it's set to release June 22nd of this year. Immortals of Avium is a game that I definitely looks flashy and interesting. I'm going to approach this one with caution, however, because while the gameplay looks good, I can easily see it becoming tiresome very quickly. I don't know much about this game other than what I've seen in trailers and the snippets of gameplay. But as of July 20th, 2023, we won't have to wait to see if my fears were correct or completely unfounded. Remnant 2 is the long-awaited sequel of my favorite Souls-like from Gunfire Games. They're known for their Darksiders games, where you play as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Then they created Lightning with Remnant from the Ashes. I absolutely love this game and think it's amazing. The melee combat's probably the weakest part of it, but it still isn't bad. It's simply meant as a last resort if enemies get too close to you. The environments are varied enough to keep it interesting, but from what I've seen of Remnant 2, they are going to making it bigger, better, badder. And it looks like there's a lot of different ideas and a lot of different environments that I'm so interested in getting myself lost in. The enemies are varied and easy to dodge once you get the timing down. The biggest issue I have from the first game was the fact that the higher difficulties really up the challenge. It's not gradual. Normal as a basic character is challenging enough to your casual gamer. Hard makes the game difficult on From Software's level. And anything higher than that is basically a nightmare to me. You'll see people online who post these videos on Remnant from the Ashes in Apocalypse difficulty without ever taking any damage. Well, obviously, after playing on Apocalypse, I understand why. You basically have to be perfect because most enemies, even the basic ones, can one-shot you even if you have full health. I've learned that they've done some tweaking to the difficulty, but so here's hoping that hard won't feel impossible to me. This one is set to slide in stores on July 25th. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. Anyone who knows me knows that this was going to show up on my list. I'm a From Software fan. So, at this point, anything that they put out is going to be an instant buy. I don't pre-order because that money can always go somewhere else until the game comes out. I have never played a single mech game, Transformers games notwithstanding, so I know very little about this type of game, and yet it doesn't matter. So great is my faith in respect in From Software president Hidetaka Miyazaki that his games are a day one buy. Yes, I know that he didn't direct this one, but he's a man of integrity. Upon becoming president of the company, he actually made an agreement with the people who were promoting him to the presidency that if he took the position, he wanted to maintain creative control on all of his projects. Once this was agreed upon, he ascended to the presidency. That being said, Armored Core 6 is nothing like Souls games, according to the director. But I have to think that they've taken everything they've learned over the last 15 years and used that to make the game better than ever. I'll get my hands on this game July 25th. Starfield. Ah, yes. Todd Howard promised Skyrim in space, which isn't exactly the selling point that he thinks it is. Skyrim has become a very overrated game. It was cool back in 2011, but with the 3 dozen different editions that they've put out, with basically none of them actually having any type of real variation, honestly, I'm not that excited when you tell me Skyrim in space. And the complacency that Bethesda's had to release this Skyrim over and over again, it's sad that when you finally do make another RPG, it isn't Elder Scrolls or Fallout. Instead, they've taken both of those games, turned them into MMOs, and let them earn what they will for whatever time that they have. Basically, with all the shady business deals intact. If you knew Fallout 76 and all the shit that they did with that, you'd understand what I'm talking about. So what do we get? Another FPS, first-person shooter. Yay. And of course, according to Todd Howard, there's 1,000 different planets that you can explore. But let's face it, there's a reason that he got the nickname Fraud Howard. All this just worked, right? Starfield looks good technically. I haven't seen enough of it to make up my mind, and while this game is coming out on September 6th, since I do not have an Xbox Series X, I'll have to wait to get this one. Mortal Kombat 1. Man, this game came out of nowhere. Just middle of May this year, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, they drop a trailer for this game. And it's going to be out in just a few short months. They are definitely saturating the market with gameplay footage, and I'm not gonna lie, this game looks freaking spectacular. The amount of detail in every moment is breathtaking. Once again, they've innovated the combat, and now you have cameos, which are different characters will come in and do a move and then run back out. It's a pretty cool concept that I've seen that I'm sure will be used to great effect. I cannot wait to see an entire juggle happen that lasts the entirety of someone's health bar. Now, I've actually seen people complain about this, and honestly, I don't see it. People are like, oh, well, that's just going to break the game. That's going to break the game. It's no longer going to be one-on-one fights. And that, I mean, okay, and? Like, I'm sure that, if you wanted, you don't have to use the cameos. But that's just a choice. People love to complain. This has definitely reset the timeline to the point where Sonya is now back in her ugly neon green outfit with a headband. Raiden's no longer a god and is now Asian. I don't really care about that, obviously, but I do find it interesting that they apparently have a bit of an origin story for him. This being Mortal Kombat 1, I can tell you that you'll have access to more characters than were in the original game. I love this, but I have to wonder, how much can they tell us? How much longer can they tell us the same story? In the last 15 years, they rebooted the franchise twice. Now, so many things have changed, and I wonder about the story and where to go from there. This game's going to explode onto shelves on September 19th. Lies of P. Now, when I first saw this game, I thought it was Bloodborne. After having played the demo, that's a hard disagree. The weapon animations are slower. The roll would make Havel proud because it's slow. So far, this game just doesn't feel as good as it looked. Maybe I need more time with it for the mechanics to click in. Maybe I just need a different weapon. This has been the case before, but I'll admit that this game is a bit disappointing as of yet. Granted, I did just start it and only played through the demo. I've reached the first boss and beaten him, and I even watched a few other YouTubers play it and beat the boss with relative ease. It took me more than a few tries. Again, this is a fault of mine. The aesthetics are pretty good, so sometimes the camera does tend to get me in trouble. More than once I would round a narrow corner where an enemy would be facing me, and then an enemy would come up from behind, and the camera would basically get me killed. Lies of P feels a bit janky to me. Is it still a game I want? Of course. I love Souls-likes, and nothing about this game has convinced me that it's going to be anything other than a fine addition to my collection. It will lie on store shelves September 19th, competing with Mortal Kombat. Poor game. RoboCop, Rogue City. While now this game doesn't actually have a solid release date, it is speculated that RoboCop's going to come out in September. This game looks like a faithful adaptation to the movies, and just because of that, I want it. The fact that Peter Weller, the original RoboCop, comes back to voice it makes it all the sweeter. I may not be the biggest fan of RoboCop, but I remember Foreman's dad blasting Peter Weller into pieces and it being shockingly violent for my young mind. I'll admit that when I get this game, I'm going to have to at least watch the first movie for reference, because it has been years since I've seen it, and I don't remember much about the story beyond that. It seems that you will only move at a slow, tanky pace, but that is very in line for how RoboCop moved. The aesthetics is definitely an 80s dystopia, and I'm here for it. Assassin's Creed Mirage. So, after the last 3 Assassin's Creed games left for reality for RPG fantasy, they've decided to go back to their roots. This makes me simply wonder, is it going to be like the old games, just better looking? Or are they going to innovate to make it feel fresh? I'm hoping that the latter is what they'd choose, but we'll find out in October. I have been a fan of this franchise since its inception with the first game. I have played every single main game and even a few of the DLCs and spin-offs. I'm hoping that something makes it feel fresh because, yeah, it might be pretty, but if it feels like the other games, it's just going to be a step backwards. A focus on stealth is welcome, but I do not want to have an overabundance of trailing missions where I have to blend in the crowd or stick just outside of their reach to be able to hear them. Sure, the kids will love it because it's something new, yet your older fans like me will remember this from old games and will suffer PTSD. If you want to live by the creed, prepare to have your ring finger removed. October 12th. Marvel Spider-Man 2. I mean, of course this game was going to make my list. I've platinumed both of the other games, and I'm excited for this game in so many ways. Tony Todd as Venom? What? Also the fact that clearly Peter is going to be affected by the symbiote and wear the black suit. So, many things have me salivating for this game. I love the fact that they know you've traversed the city in the previous 2 games. So now the traversal is much faster, and at least Miles gains the ability to glide with a wingsuit. Having both Venom and Kraven the Hunter as antagonists in this game, as well as, for a bit I suspect, Peter Parker, seems like an amazing choice. Beyond that, all I can say is that this is definitely a day 1 buy when it swings onto shelves October 20th. So that's my list of the most anticipated games coming out. Were there any that you think should have made my list that I missed? Are there any that you're particularly excited for? Let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time in the Twisted Nightmare Studio.